our beloved students today. Thank you so much for joining our 3-in-1 programs in the basic communications. So, mohon izin Bu Uma, as the representative of the International Office, I would like to explain to you firstly about the programs. So actually the 3-in-1 program is the collaborations between the lecturer from UB and also the lecturer from abroad and practitioners as well from the professional organizations in order to supporting the knowledge developments according to the field of expertise. And also we intended to increase the scope of collaborations internationally. So that we do believe that this program will help us to gain more knowledges, especially the new one, and also the wider perspective about what happened in the globally, especially related to the topics. And then we do hope to continue the collaborations in the future with Dr. Luis, especially, and also the Wageningen University and Research. I think that's all from me for the opening. So I give the opportunity to the moderator today, Pak Bayu.
Okay, sure.
Start the materials. Okay, so thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Dian Islami, as a Master of Ceremony who lead the occasion today. Before we start the course, I would like to introduce Dr. Luis. Dr. Luis is from Wageningen University and Research, from Department of Social Science, and the subdivision is Knowledge, Technology, and Innovation. And she is a lecturer in video for data collection and ocean and coastal governance, and then imaging science, especially video scientific communication and education, and then visual research method. And for today, I think this is very related to our study about communication. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Luis for being here. It is an honor for us from Brawijaya University. And then I would like to say thank you to all of the participants, for the lecturer, the faculty from Brawijaya University, especially from Department of Social Economic of Agriculture. And Dr. Luis, we have it's about 40 minutes for course, and then after that we have around 20 minutes for question and answer and then discussion. Without further ado, I think I will give the opportunity to Dr. Luis to give a lecture about the interdisciplinary approach. This is very interesting topic, because this topic is not only multidiscipline but transdiscipline. What about transdiscipline? We will learn together, especially for our student. This is maybe for you is a new perspective. What is transdisciplinary view on the rural development? Okay, Dr. Luis, I would like to give you about 40 minutes to give a lecture to our students.
Thank you for this introduction, and thank you, my new colleagues from Brawijaya University. First time we are cooperating. Sorry, I don't speak Bahasa Indonesia. Some words. I can say Selamat Siang.
Thank you.
But I'm more or less conversant. I've been at work with the Institute of Technology in Bandung, and I'm at work with the University of Muhammadiyah in Rakan, Sulawesi. So that's a little bit my frame of reference, also because it's in the areas of Bandung, in Upper Citarum areas, and in Sulawesi that I have been at work in Indonesia. So that's basically, if you also see some pictures later in the PowerPoint, that's where they are made. One addition, I'm in the Netherlands working at 2 universities. I'm working at Wageningen University, and I'm also at work at Van Hanlaarsen University of Applied Sciences, where I'm leading the research group on communication, participation, and social ecological learning. So in either case, be it with this research group or with the research group Knowledge, Technology, and Innovation, you see I am very much in between disciplines. And in an academic university and a University of Applied Sciences to further elaborate on what you said, on what is nowadays very contemporary views on transdisciplinary views on rural development. I hope I've chosen the right topic. I think this is our very first time we are working together, but I like it that we just start working rather than saying, well, let's take half a year of formal meetings and discussion and exchanging whatever policy papers. So we just start. I've seen I'm being co-host, so let me try to open this screen because I made a PowerPoint. So, and actually some slides I borrowed from a slide we have used in the presentation with Universitas Muhammadiyah. So there you see some translations to Bahasa, but that's not my quality, that's my colleague Nuralia Lairing in Sulawesi. Yeah, so I want to share my screen. Wait a second, this is...
Dr. Louis, yeah, I have to leave for the discussion with Utrecht University staff, and maybe we will see you in the Netherlands by the end of this year. I'm planning to go to Wageningen again.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and maybe see you.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.
I want to share my screen. So you see the PowerPoint now? Is it visible to you?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Louis.
Yep. And sound also fine? You can hear me well as well?
Yes, yes, it is clear enough, Dr. Louis.
Yeah. So what I will try to do, as the title says, we are looking on how to conceptualize a transdisciplinary view on rural development. Yeah? Therefore, we'll look a little bit at what is a transdisciplinary view. I think my colleague already introduced that is, goes beyond interdisciplinary working. We will look at the societal context and come back then to rural development. How do we look at rural development? If we look at disciplinary research in the academia, that's how it started. We had different schools or faculties or departments, and each focusing on a specific domain, be it population studies, be it agriculture, be it engineering or biotechnology. So we had quite separate fields of study. Later, we went to interdisciplinary research. So then, for example, you had agriculture engineering, yeah, or you had spatial planning in urban settings in relation to increased population. So they came closer. But if we look nowadays at transdisciplinary research, we really say, well, it's more complex. It's not only the cooperation between specialists in background in both natural and social sciences, but we have to renew science as such. Yeah, contemporary challenges are so complex that we also have to think about new aspects. And for example, in Wageningen University, we very recently are starting now a research which focuses on craftsmanship in digital approaches. That we say, well, if you really want to integrate, as is happening nowadays, of course, in Corona times, that we are using increasingly, as we are working now, at digital platforms for cooperation, we have to collaborate. You can't say we want to have platforms such as Zoom. We are using in the Netherlands also very frequently MS Teams. Yeah, if you want to make these softwares available, yeah, to serve as appropriately as possible, yeah, in education, you have to combine, let's say, the craftsmanship of ICT development with educational design specialists. You know? So that's where transdisciplinary research comes in, and a transdisciplinary view on knowledges. And I think for several of you, even the plural form of knowledges might be new, but we're using nowadays sometimes knowledges in its plural way to indicate that you are combining different types of knowledge. If we look at the societal context, why we are recognizing the need for transdisciplinary view on rural development, we talk about urgency. Yeah, and if you talk about urgency, I think it comes by no surprise. We all know about an aspect such as pollution, and here in particular, we look at plastics. Plastics is all over the world, especially where we do have coastlines. Well, Indonesia, well, we have a beautiful coastline in the Netherlands, but Indonesia, you have such enormous length of coastlines. Yeah, so coastal pollution is quite an issue. And how we look at it nowadays, and I think it's interesting with the upcoming meeting in Glasgow, am I right, in Scotland, about the Paris agreements on climate change. Yeah, this is a statement, if I'm right, first made by the then President Obama of the United States, stating we are the first generation to feel the effect of climate change and the last generation who can do something about it. Yeah? So the urgency is, it's urgency, but it's a direct call to us. Yeah, we are talking about climate change, we're talking about biodiversity problems, and we are talking about conflicts. Most recently, I think the entire world has been observing the events in Afghanistan. We know in the Middle East, we know in the Americas. There are many conflicts all over the world, also affecting people's life, but also people's dreams, people's tranquility, etc. Yeah, so we are also talking about complexity. Yeah, it's not easy to get such problems solved. And here you see an example, a project we are working on in cooperation with the Institute of Technology in Bandung. Here you see this is a very dirty river, the Citarum River, flowing through the city of Bandung. And already there's a lot of waste deposited in the very river in Bandung. Imagine the river goes all the way to Jakarta, where the river should still supply drinking water to the citizens of Jakarta. But as you see it already here, the natural flow of the river, you know, has been defined, yeah, by its urban settings here and the very proximity of the housing areas. In the societal context, what we also see, if we take the color green, let's say for everybody who focuses on environmental soundness, yeah, we see there's sometimes very opposing parties. Yeah, so issues of well-being of people, issues of conflicts is very of such opposing views, and then politics comes into the discussion, which makes it even more complex. So if everything we have to deal with is immediately positioned in a political context or directly related to political parties, well, it's almost impossible in the end to get things sorted out. Yeah. And over the past 2 years, what is interesting, the entire world, yeah, has been confronted with a pandemic, which I have been very optimistic about, because what I liked about the pandemic, and this is not to realize, I mean, all over the world, we have quite some victims. It's a very tragic situation. It's not for nothing. We call it a pandemic. But initially, I thought it might be something, you know, that unifies the world, because there is something which is visible, or at least it's more tangible. If we talk about plastic contamination, for many people, it's far away. But I thought Corona, under lockdown conditions, you know, we were all wearing the same face mask, we were all keeping social distances, we were all in lockdown situation. So it was kind of shared experience for the entire world. Dealing with a pandemic is, of course, very complex. You know? And then the interesting discussions which came up that we shouldn't go back to normal because normal was the problem. So here you see also, if you look at transdisciplinarity, here you see there is a health problem, but there is an issue of social behavior. There's an issue of communicating all these precautionary measures. And it's linked to issues of pollution again, yeah, of the amount of animals we have. So the threat of virus spreading over the world is also a real issue. And then we are called upon, and as you see this series of children drawings, which are actually, it's a series of murals from Bandung, yeah, it's the children call on to us. And I know I have my colleagues here, but also you students, you are the young generation, but you're no longer children. Yeah, now you are in the academia, so you may receive this societal call. We have to be a hero for our Earth. So if we look then at transdisciplinary work, yeah, we say it moves beyond bridging divides of academia to engage directly with production and use of knowledge outside of the academia. And this is also could be confusing. Huh? How do we look at knowledge outside of the academia? Yeah? But if we go back to the drawings of the children, this is a children's drawing. Yeah? But you see already in the tiny drawings, they add to the call, be the hero for our Earth. They have an idea. It's about planting. It's about mobility. It's about circular economy, etc. Yeah? So the time that we could stay safe in the ivory tower of our university, producing knowledge to be taken up by the world, it's something of a nearby past. So we have to consider how our knowledge and information, how do these flows work to certain ends? Now, if we wonder how are we going to do so, we also need a roadmap. So how are we organizing this? Yeah, if we say there are knowledge, there are experiences, all scattered everywhere in society, in knowledge institutes such as our universities, but we have to use this to be able to respond to urgent issues. How are we going to do so? One of these roadmaps nowadays is what we say, yeah, we have to look at the quadruple helix. We have to look at learning and innovation processes between science, governance, business, and citizens. You know? And then we say, well, if we talk about learning and innovation, we can also talk about collaboration and learning. And learning, I think it's important to realize that the very term learning nowadays, it's not only what's happening, it's not only sekolah learning, yeah, it's not only what happens in school, in formal education. Nowadays, if we talk about learning, we refer to any process where people share ideas, explore certain issues, share information, etc. Yeah? And it is between distinct parties. So we look at science, governance, business, and citizens. I hear a beep. I can't see the chat. So if there is an urgent question in between, you have to use the audio to inform me, okay? An important roadmap we are using nowadays is called the Framework for Strategic Sustainable Development. And you see in this framework, we can distinguish between 4 steps. And then the first step is visioning, yeah? Looking forward. What is our ambition? And if I refer to the Glasgow International Conference next week, if I'm right, yeah, which links to the Paris agreements, we are talking about an international conference of all countries in the world. All governments join hands in what is a general international vision that we should reduce climate change, yeah, and especially a major indicator is then the 1.5 degrees of increase of general temperature, which is connected to nitrogen emissions, it's to carbon dioxide emissions, etc. But that is the larger vision, that we should reduce the temperature all over the world so that our grandchildren or grandchildren still can live in this world without being affected too much by sea rise. And increasing sea rise levels is, of course, very important to countries with a coastal area. For example, the Netherlands, I think 2/3 of the Netherlands is below sea rise level. We have natural protection, our dunes, we have dikes, etc. Indonesia also will be affected. Bangladesh will be strongly affected by sea rise level. Yeah, so we have this vision. From this vision, you go back to a baseline study. What is the actual situation? Yeah, and in this actual situation, yeah, in this going back, we also have to say, well, how can we act? And what is interesting, which is step C, as you see, what are creative solutions? And creative solutions don't refer to chaos. Yeah, so sometimes creativity is seen as something just spontaneous, just chaotic. No, we are talking here about creative in a definition of doing something that could be unexpected. It could be something we are not used to, which is unconventional. But if we have to act on this urgency, we maybe have to be creative. At the same time, you see process number D is we have to decide on priorities. Yeah, probably we can't do everything at the same time. Yeah. Another framework, if we talk about roadmaps and framework, is very frequently we use this framework for ecosystem analysis. And not only ecosystem analysis, but social ecological systems. Yeah, whereby you look at different systems, you look at the resource system, you look at the governance system, you look at the users, the resource units, and the interactions. Yeah. So, for example, if you look at issues of forestry governance, it's about the governance. So, what rules and regulations are put in place? We look at the larger forests. Yeah. And then, of course, is how do you define forest? In the Netherlands, we have different forests. As in Indonesia, in forest, a problem that creeps into the situation is, of course, palm oil. Yeah? So that comes then in a specific resource unit. There we can look at palm oil plantations. In the Netherlands, we have subsystems. For example, our apple trees, we are always proud of. Yeah? If we have applied this in NRECAN, yeah, to look at an analysis of the social ecological system, as we were working on issues of deforestation and changes in the climate, which made the temperature, the increase of the temperature affected the existing systems of coffee production. And coffee production is very important, and coffee production also have, of course, long linkages with the world market. Yeah. So then we looked at the various subsystems, yeah, in this entire framework. Yeah. So it's a framework which could be applied to specific situations. Yeah. In our field, we basically look at governance, users, interactions, and the outcomes. Yeah, but still the other systems feed into our information. Yeah, we started this work in 2019. Yeah, we did the first field work to have a look. More recently, we looked at who are the users, where we looked at a general platform for rural communication. Yeah. If you see here with the drawings, if we go back to this issue of creativity, we use the drawings to come up with an inventory. Who are the users, which in this case were basically the Pertanian, but also the extension workers of both the cantors of agriculture, of livestock and fisheries, of environmental affairs, etc. when we looked at users, what you also did, where do we see the farmers? Yeah. So in the picture on the left, we see this is a meeting of a farmer group in Arakan district. Yeah. And the picture in the middle, you see one of the specific aspects we look at. What about communication? Who owns the phone? Yeah. And what type of phones do they use? Yeah. We also went to the market. Who are the ones working on the markets, who are selling the produce? And for example, here you see also we looked at the bags, that if you talk about bags, you see here the plastic bag are used for selling the produce. In the resource system, yeah, we looked at the coffee production, but there was also the icons, you see, there was poultry, yeah, so you make for each system and subsystem, you look what is happening. So here you see some of the aspects of the agricultural system, which we say also, how can we look at the social ecological system from the agricultural perspective? And here you see potatoes, you see onions, you see carrots, and you see the coffee. And for those of you with an experience in rural production, you know, horticulture or potatoes or coffee are very, very different production systems. And of course, the environmental dimension. Yeah, whether we like it or not. Yeah, you see here the hilly areas in Arakan. Yeah, you see steep hills, you see the deforestation, and you see the pollution in the riversides. Yeah, these are pictures taken close by to the market to show, yeah, in a quick way. And as I was announced initially, part of my methodological work in the university focuses on visual research methodologies. Yeah, one of the options of visual research methodologies is what we call quick evidence. Yeah, with this series of 3 pictures, you can say there is a problem in Arakan. Yeah, I mean, with the deforestation, the rivers, you know, go down in a very fast way, and you see the accumulation of plastics. And in this case, it was close to the market, but observable in the entire urban area. So then what we did, we started to look at digital farmer field school. And we said, well, what we maybe should do, yeah, maybe we should have a look at a different communication platform. If we want to discuss all these problems, we should no longer separate between the Ministry of Agriculture and Environmental Affairs on the other hand, and also the regional government and the university. They all became involved. And that is then what we call also a living lab, where all the parties are working together. Yeah. So here you see with the Dinas Pertanian, the Dinas Lingkungan Hidup, I hope I pronounced correctly, of course, sorry. Yeah, you see, we started working on this analysis, which you do reports, you publish the reports so it can be used and become available by all. Yeah, and as I said, then we said this cooperation of all these different groups, governance from the academia, from the industry, and the citizen working together. And that is what we call a living lab approach. And in living lab, you see in the other picture, you see it's about operations, it's about learning, it's about innovation and research, or in more known terms, a public-private people partnership. Yeah, and that's how we started working on the Sekolah Lapang Digital. Yeah, so can we organize a communication platform where all farmers, even those in distant areas, but also in consideration, yeah, of the precautionary measures in Corona times, where the extension officers no longer could travel to visit the farmer groups. Yeah, the Sekolah Lapang Digital, it's something we started to develop in Sierra Leone here on the part of the map of the West African coast. Yeah, we started working on this during the Ebola pandemic. The Ebola pandemic was a very mortal disease in the West African region. really leading to a lot of death. So mortality rates far higher than the current COVID pandemic. But there was a larger group of cocoa farmers who were almost ready with a certification training. And after finalization of their certification training, they could sell their cocoa beans as fair trade produced. And this would increase almost by 100%. So it would double almost the income. And as you all know, in agricultural value chain, it is basically the producers, yeah, who do most of the work and earn least. Yeah, so this would really improve their situation. But then came Ebola, and all the work in the certification training couldn't be continued. So if we talk about a lockdown in Corona times, lockdown was even more severe in Sierra Leone. Now, if you look at transdisciplinary work on design and development on Digital Farmer Field School, you have to start with defining design principles. Yeah, it's not just that you, oh, nice, let's develop a website. Yeah, so that you say, okay, let's find somebody who can design a website. No, first you have to start defining design principles. You need to know really for whom am I designing this? Who is going to use it? Yeah. Then you continue with producing interface elements. Yeah. Then, yeah, this is an iterative process. You test it again, and it goes to a prototype, and this prototype needs to be used. The prototype needs to be tested by its users. Yeah, and that is really a radical change with conventional agricultural extension. When I started my career, there were many people, working in agricultural extension. I have always been in the field of education and learning, etc. Yeah, I also studied partially agriculture, but people who only studied agriculture, they thought, okay, we have something. We want to have a campaign on foot and mouth disease. Yeah, and nobody checked with the farmers. Yeah, there was just they came up with recommendations and started to disseminate. By then we called it dissemination of these recommendations. Nowadays, we look at it very different. We say, well, before we start bothering people, we really have to test if our recommendations or our communication channel or our extension campaign is going to work. Yeah, and that is what we call prototype testing. Yeah. How do design principles look like? Design principles, let me try to check on the time. Design principles, yeah. We don't have to go through all it, but you define actually what you want. So in this case, it was relevant for certification. It should support this certification of the cocoa production. Yeah. It was also said, well, the Digital Farmer Field School should provide motivational access. Yeah. So the very digital platform should support farmers, yeah, to be motivated to use it, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Another aspect, of course, is to say, well, we have to focus on material access. And here you see the situation in Sierra Leone. In 2016, even 3G was only upcoming, and this picture was then taken in between the eastern part in Kenema district, where we were at work in Sierra Leone, and the capital city. Yeah? On the other pictures, the picture on the left, you see there was per village or per farmer group, there was a system of charging. Not even every farmer had access to electricity. And the picture in the middle, you see a system where farmers work together. They went up to a mountain with a series of phones of diverse people to gain access, to be connected. Yeah, and we looked what are we going to have in the Digital Farmer Field School? So it was decided there was a main character, Fatou, a female cocoa farmer. There was Fatou's farmer group. There was an office with extension work, and there was a specific aspect on the digital system for representing the market. And here you see the market, the office. Yeah, in the office, there were 2 extension workers, which could be called by all farmers. So we had Joyce Rebecca and Musa Fodai, which had each their own phone number. And then here you see the interface, you see with the different elements of the interface. So we continued working on this. Actually, here we are at work in Mongolia. And here again, you see, it's a lot about drafting and sketching. Yeah, it's not that you immediately have a nice digital interface. And you have to think over and over again, what are we going to do? Here you see, this is how they developed the first prototype. And here, this was the first prototype setting. Here you see Mongolia, it's a very nomadic culture with pastoralist groups herding goats and camels, actually. Now, if we bring this all together, yeah, because if we say, well, we looked at transdisciplinarity. In transdisciplinarity, we say, well, it's about diverse knowledge domains working together, but it's also looking in general in society, where is knowledge? Yeah, what experience do people have? What perceptions, what questions do people have, and how are all these relations combining? We looked at societal context, and then we said, well, we have really urgent questions. It's nowadays, what is needed is to act on these aspects of environmental change, aspects of climate change, etc. And we looked at it from a perspective of complexity. It's not easy. Not everybody is convinced. Yeah, if we look at the media, there's also many people, you know, talking about fake media. I don't know to what extent it is an issue in Indonesia. I'm not. No, I don't know the situation. But in the Netherlands, vaccines are accessible to the entire population in the Netherlands, and still we have, I think it's about 17% of the population not yet vaccinated for COVID-19 for diverse reasons. Yeah, because they say, well, there are nobody knows if it's safe. There are religious explanations for not using vaccinations. There are people who say, well, it's too expensive, although they are free of charge. So in all countries in the world, we have this complexity. You know, we have a technological answer, which are the vaccines, and still there is a reluctancy, which is also explained by people saying, no, you can't have trust in the Dutch government. You know, so complexity is all over the place. Then we moved to roadmap to say, well, we have to search particular processes which can help us out to work in a transdisciplinary way, yeah, and which can act on urgency and complexity. And then we looked at the framework for strategic sustainable development and modeling and analysis of social ecological systems. We quickly reviewed examples from the Living Lab and RECON and the Digital Farmer Field School. Yeah? And this is all based in the idea that if we look at rural development, it's not only food security. Yeah? It's not only about producing food, yeah, and making sure that everybody has access to the food. It's also about environmental management, and it is about rural economy. Yeah? But even more, yeah, this is still not enough. Yeah? So looking at rural development, it's not enough to look at food security, environmental management, rural economy, and whatever domains. We also have to look at what is helping us forward in such a transdisciplinary view. And that is where you see the name of our research group at VHL. It's communication, participation, and social ecological learning, or the knowledge, technology, and innovation group at Wageningen University. Yeah. And with the pictures below, I like to stress again, this is resulting from the social ecological system analysis in RECON. Yeah? And there you see it is already taking place. It's not completely new. Yeah, you see here at our left, you see a meeting from farmers. Yeah. With animal husbandry assistance, you see community planning workshop, yeah, you see an impact of the floodings in RECON, so you can't deny the environmental impact of deforestation. And the very nice picture, of course, here you see my colleague in Enrakan. Yeah, despite all the problems we have, suddenly, we managed to improve our digital ways of cooperation, even at an international level. And even this is Kim, yeah, he could even continue working and taking care of his baby at the same time. So this is where we stand. This is how we are thinking. Well, it's not enough. It's a fast and quick introduction. And a last element I would like to share with you is what comes in such a transdisciplinary review is more attention for reflection. Yeah? In Wageningen University, our research group, Knowledge, Technology, and Innovation, is therefore also closely connected with the research group on philosophy. Yeah. In my work, we are looking at how can we document our activities and upload them quickly so that they can be shared. Now I see I gave for one film the wrong link. I'll send it later again. Yeah, but here is the other YouTube link. You can find our channel where we try to upload our work for you to have a look. And having said so, this means it's a short introduction. What we'll do on Monday, we will go deeper into particular case studies. And later Monday, I will send you for a farm visit to have a look at the Dutch farm, and that we will then later discuss, I think now in about 10 days. Thank you. Terima kasih.
You're very welcome, Dr. Lois. It's interesting topic about the living around maybe 2006, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. But it's still can use it for the Living Lab. Mistaken is an orchestra of collaboration. It is combining stakeholders, government, academic, researcher, and then public sector, and then business sector, and then community also. And a lot of problem, I think, in our country, especially in the environment, as you said earlier about the plantation, and this is a problem related to the climate change, I think, because the temperature increase, and then it will impact on the food. Okay, is my clear?
No.
Is it clear?
No. Sorry.
Okay, clearly. Okay, can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, how about you?
Okay. I think I have a big problem with my connection. And the next session is a question and answer. I think student question related to today's topic. And for the question and answer, I think for the first, I would like to give 2 students to ask the question. Please raise your hand. And then you can ask directly to Dr. Louis. Okay, Shaif Ahmad Ramadan. She told us that he can speak English. Okay, you can type. You can type on the chat. Then I will translate it. And while we are waiting another student, is there any question again? Because this topic is very, very interesting. Not only agriculture. Okay, Brahmadeva Adiaksa. If you have any question, then you can ask directly to Dr. Lois. You can ask the question, please, Brahma. Still mute. You can open your microphone, Brahma. Okay, please, host, open Brahma Deva Adiaksa. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for the word this time. My name is Bram. I want to ask a question for Mrs. Louis. So, according to your point of view, what is the big difference between Indonesian and Netherlands farmer inside resources cultivation or development? Then, as a student, what can we do to maximize this resource development? Should we wait for the government action, or can we do it by ourselves, even though it just give a little impact for our country or for the world? Did you get the question?
Well, the first one I got that you're asking about the difference, to my opinion, on Indonesian and Dutch farmers. Am I right?
Yes, it's right.
Yeah. And then the second question, but maybe the moderator can quickly write down the second message again, that we don't lose it. Yeah, what is the difference between the Indonesian and Dutch farmers? Actually, let's add this question to your farm visit next week, for you to figure out. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Yeah, what is actually this difference? I think there must be differences, of course. Yeah, because I mean the major religion in Indonesia is Muslim, and we are basically Christian religion. But I don't want to offend anybody, but I was raised as a Catholic, you know, that every religion is precious. Yeah. So even that doesn't need to be a big difference, although it seems to be different. The same as that we can say, well, in the Netherlands, we speak Dutch and you have Bahasa Indonesia, but you speak a language, isn't it? And every language has, of course, its own values and its own melodies in poetry and books, but as such, it's a language. So in that sense, we are very much the same. And I think what farmers also have similar, as far as my experiences in rural areas, you know, their attachment of people to their land, their attachment to the importance of food production is very much a shared issue all over the world. So sometimes if I find it easier to talk about farmers in whatever countries, yeah? But if you would compare a Dutch farmer or an Indonesian farmer with urban citizens in the Netherlands or in Indonesia, they are very different. You know, if you live in an apartment on the 11th floor and you think, yeah, you get your food items only from a supermarket, you never touch the cow, you never have been engaged in harvesting, so you have no feeling for seasonality. Yeah, that is very different. But however, I think, yes, farmers in Indonesia, circumstances are different, maybe even more uncertain as compared to Dutch farmers. In general, the income of farmers in the Netherlands, it's not always high, but they have a kind of stable income. And the capital of Dutch farmers, it's quite a huge capital, which is basically converted to the property of soil. Land property is quite a huge capital in the Netherlands. Then the next question for both farmers, I think as well, but maybe Dutch farmers are way more aware that they have to act on climate change. I don't know if that is already the case in Indonesia, but currently in the Netherlands, there's quite a resistant movement amongst farmers to say, we have to solve an environmental problem we didn't create. Yeah. So there is a kind of resistance in that sense. And then we follow up. The next week you continue exploring this issue with your farm visit. Okay.
Okay. For the next question, I think related to the what should we do? Do we need to wait government policy, or we need to act to change the? I think. What about in your opinion, Dr.?
This is an easy question. You have to act. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the mural paintings from the children in Bandung, the call is loud and clear, isn't it? You have to do something. But of course, you have to work in alignment with governmental policies. Yeah, but don't underestimate governmental policies. What I have seen in Bandung in relation to sustainable river management, what I've seen in Sulawesi, my impression of the number of engaged people is very high in Indonesia. Yeah, and even in Citarum River, you know, there was the involvement of the army in cleaning up the rivers. You know, I think in Indonesia, same. You know, in the Netherlands, we have to get used to a kind of citizen engagement by the army. You know, it's somehow a different institute, but we see they are acting. You know, they become active in the Netherlands, for example, also with floods and landslides. And I think youth, don't be surprised by anything. Yeah, if you know you have to respond to this urgency. Yeah, because I can talk. I have a different age. You have noticed. Yeah, so I may talk about the importance of my grandchildren or grandchildren, but you have to already to act on the future of your own children. Yeah, so there is an urgent call, and you have to find a way to act. But in finding the way to act, I think it's still to us, the generation on above you, older than you, to provide frameworks, to provide lines of thinking. You know, it shouldn't become too chaotic. And no. Let's try to align our energy, our dedication. You know, that we still have a robust way of working in acting on urgency.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lewis. I think we need to act without waiting for policy, but it's not make a chaotic situation. So we can make a movement to clear the river, or we can make a movement and then to reduce what do we say, to reduce food waste. Then we act for next generation, not only for us, but for next generation. I think that's we get that point. Okay, we still have maybe for 5 to 10 minutes, and I will give you 1 to 2 students to ask question.
Yeah.
Very good question from Bram. And next, maybe again, we still have 5 to 10 minutes before we close this course, because this transdisciplinary is very complex. We face, okay, Simon Azril, Nabi. I will give opportunity to you, Simon.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity given to me. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Simon, and I want to ask you, Dr. Lewis, as an expert from the agriculture. So, the problem of our country is about our farmers are the old farmers. Most of our young people is looking that to be a farmer is not an elegant work. So most of our farmers is an old farmer. So just like your what had you said before about the digital farmers field school. So I think all of our technologies of all of our innovation will be in vain because our farmers are the old farmers. So how what is your opinion, Dr. Luis, about these problems in our country? Because it is hard for us to introduce the technologies to our old farmers. Thank you very much.
Okay, this question. Okay, Dr. Lewis.
Yeah. No, nice questions, Simon. Thank you. And there are diverse perspectives to this. Let's start with the old farmers. What I have encountered in Sulawesi, farmers are using their phones. And we have had some meetings with female farmer groups, and I have been surprised. They were very good in explaining when they were using their phones. So it turned out to be a difference in phone use between men and women, which basically is women work harder. Yeah. So women work harder, spend more time on both agriculture activities as household chores. Yeah. Although it's not that stereotypical. Men do also things in the house, although men don't like to tell they support their wife and children, but they do as well. But still workload is higher for women. But the women, they say if we have digital access to information, it's sometimes later in the evening, yeah, that we have time and we feel a bit more relaxed and we are still curious to read about what we are doing. So they say with a digital communication, we can have access at times which are convenient to us, be it very early in the morning, be it very late in the evening, or be it sometimes in between chores. So they really focus on aspects of flexibility. But they also added to this, we find it difficult to know which sources to rely on. So they said, if we are going to have a platform, we feel we can have confidence in what is posted on this platform, because now times we are losing time, or we are not certain if something we read on the internet, for example, if it's reliable or not. So actually, the analysis of these farmers groups was way more smart and way more up to date, as I also expected. So in that sense, I wouldn't be too pessimistic, but yes, there is a problem. Yeah, there is definitely a difference between older and young generations. Yeah, I can do a lot on. I have a lot of digital abilities, of course. Yeah, you put me in a film studio, and I can do a lot of things, of course. But for example, on social media, my children have created a Facebook account for me, and I've never used it. Yeah, so it's and only recently I posted my first LinkedIn message. Yeah, so which is, that there is a difference in generations. Yeah, but don't underestimate farmers who are too old. Yeah, the other aspect in relation to our farmers old is a very relevant issue: to what extent youth is interested in farming. Yeah. That's right. Youth is not always interested in farming, but also if we portray, and if you show, I think I added somewhere, we look at portrayal. So how are farmers shown? Farmers are often shown as being old, being muddy, being, having low incomes, etc., etc. So it is indeed also, how do we make farming attractive to youth? Yeah. And that could be related to income, yeah. It could be related to other aspects. And when effective motivations come into the equation. So if you say youth should start liking working outside, yeah, and not being worried about becoming muddy or becoming wet in the rain, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and maybe as you are about to start your weekend, we still have the working day full in progress, but it's almost your weekend. And you are, let me check, we have 300 participants over here.
Yes.
Now, Simon, maybe you should try at least half of them this weekend. Yeah, go out into the fields, get dirty, help a farmer, start enjoying it. Yeah. As long as it's still possible, I would say go outside. Yeah. All of you must have somewhere a relative with a farm, isn't it? Yeah. And express this joy, it's nature is very precious. Yeah. And if we manage to attach that value to it, you are acting on the urgency, actually.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lewis.
I hope this is an answer.
Yes, very, very good suggestion. Go outside, work with farmer, and enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we continue to the next question, I would like to ask Dr. Lewis, do you still have any time for us to discuss? Because one student raised her hand. Maybe. Okay. Dr. Lewis still have time. Then I will give opportunity to Putri to ask directly to Dr. Lewis. Please, Putri, you can lower your hand and then ask the question.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to ask some questions, but I'm only making my present some problems network. So, from the material that has been presented by Dr. Lewis, that in the digital farmer fit school, we have to make design principles first. In design principles, one of them is aimed to obtain certification. Are there any special barriers to achieving this certification in the FFS? And how can the FFS can give solutions so that goals can be fully achieved? Thank you.
I got the first part of your question about certification and DFFS. I didn't get the second part of your question.
Yes, because
okay, the second part is, and how can DFFS can give solutions so that goals can be fully achieved?
I didn't get it. Putri, can you?
Maybe I can start answering, Putri, thank you. It's sorry, Sorry, Putri, for that we moved forward very quickly on these design principles. And I think I didn't explain it right. The certification issue was certification that you have produced your cocoa in a fair trade manner. Yeah, as you know, to sell of your agriculture produce as being fair trade or being biological or being ecological, any of these controlled specifications, you need to be certified. Yeah, and certification then means that you that you are able to document the entire growing season, because it's closely connected to the use or the non-use actually of fertilizers and pesticides, etc. So there is a lot of documentation. It's also the social sustainability, so that you explain how children are that children are not really that it's not really child labor on your farm. I mean, that children work along their parents every now and then, it's okay. But for example, if children work on the farm and therefore not go to school, that's also not allowed under fair trade working conditions. So the certification we were referring to in the design principles was the certification for the case of Sierra Leone cocoa producing farmers. But what I like about your question, and now I'm giving a free interpretation to the second part of your question, when are you certified? When are you competent in designing such a platform as DFFS? Fantastic question, yeah. The answer is very complicated in the sense that if you want to be good in designing a digital farmer field school, you have to be good in a diversity of aspects. You should be able to work in some artistic elements, so being in filmmaking, photography, etc. You should be good in learning design, yeah, so designing a website which makes sense to its users. And therefore you also need to have a basic idea, not so much on programming. Huh? I mean, the technical ICT development, we also leave to ICT developers, but you need to have a basic idea what is possible on websites. I mean, you need to know a little bit again about navigation structures. But also then if you go back to rural communities and farmers, you need to have a sense of understanding or empathy with the rural communities to know how they work, yeah. And rural communities all over the world are not the same as urban communities, yeah. There is a higher sense of community, of cooperation, etc. Yeah? And of course, if it's about cocoa, you need maybe not that you all know everything about cocoa production or everything about coffee production or horticulture, but you should be able to understand what you need to know. So you need, so in the case of when I was working on the cocoa project in Sierra Leone, I mean, I have to know for what aspects do I need to bring in a specialist on particular aspects of the cocoa value chain. So be it on cocoa growing, be it on the fermentation parts, be it on the processing part or whatsoever. As a start of answering your question, Putri.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lewis. We have a very short time. Last two questions. First is from Faiz, who chat in Bahasa. I will ask in English. Good afternoon, Dr. Lewis, from Faiz. The question is, the solution for the problem is, for the complex problem, of course, it requires people who can understand and willing to start and to do it. So in your country, Dr. Lewis, is there help like to overcome the very complex problem and how you respond it? That's the first question. And the second question is from I will in the comment in the chat from Deborah Marlina. The question is, how do we as young people face the problem of low capacity and use of technology for agriculture development, and how do we overcome it so that it can be accepted by farmers in Indonesia? I think this is the last question. After Dr. Lewis answered this, I think we will close this session because it has been we passed the time, of course.
Yeah.
Question, Dr. Lewis?
Yeah. Now, I think in general, what I like to share, first of all, that to Faiz and Deborah, say thank you to the very lecturers who have organized these series for you, because I think it's a very nice situation that we can share these ideas. So I think I also may say thank you for the invitation to share how far we came. And the second one is let's continue how we continue on Monday. And don't think you have to understand it all today. You are first year bachelor students, am I right?
Yes, first years.
Yeah. So there's still time to come. And secondly, feel invited. Yeah. What I'm sharing here with you is very contemporary. This is what is happening at this very moment, and it's happening in the Netherlands, but it's also happening in Indonesia. Yeah. So it's also up to you to realize, yeah, that you have a role to play, yeah, and happy for you. You are in the university, yeah, so your lecturers, yeah, they will help you to learn more about these topics, and it's up to you to position yourself in this very complex, urgent, transdisciplinary field. Yeah. So don't think that you have to do everything today. Yeah. But try to understand, read newspapers, be focused. Yeah. Look for learning, look for the learning by yourself. So you look for the learning what you can do in the university, but talk to people. And the same as we say, go outside, try to really understand how people are acting. Don't ordeal too fast. Yeah, that farmers are too old and that they are not willing. That's also from the past. Yeah, nowadays it's not what do farmers don't want. Yeah, the question is, to what extent are we able to make it interesting to farmers? So to what extent are we able to come up with an interesting digital platform, which is going to be used by the farmers? So the question is no longer of acceptance and reluctance by farmers. The question is, it's our accountability. We have to do something which is nice, which is interesting, which is supporting farmers. But anyway, it's all also to be continued. Yeah. And I will try then on Monday to be a bit more specific, a little bit on digital communication strategies.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Louis. A very interesting suggestion that we need to ask to ourselves for the student. What is attractive to farmers in the digital era, in the digital age, in the disruptive era? Because our life, one of factor is depend on agriculture production. So we need to focus on our agriculture sector, because our food is from agriculture. We cannot get another food from another sector except agriculture. So we will continue, Dr. Louis, for next week on Monday. And thank you for all students for being here, and thank you for all of the questions. And then it is an honor for me to be a moderator in this session. And maybe for next week, I also become a moderator again. And sorry, sometimes I off my camera because my internet is not fast enough. And then for Ulili, for Pudian, and all of the faculty in this meeting, thank you very much. And we gave assignment for the student to make a review, 750 to 1,000 words for the review of this meeting. And so they can study more about this transdisciplinary view in solving the problem, in the social problem, agricultural problem, and other problem from broad perspective. Okay, thank you. Maybe I will close this. Before I close this meeting, maybe I will give a moment to Dr. Louis for the closing statement.
The closing statement is, it's nice to hear you have an assignment. Yeah. If you really take it serious, you know, and you feel you like to act, then you have to do something, you know. And then you also should have confidence that, for example, I'm happy to hear that you have an assignment, that you have to write whatever you wish to write in thinking about this activity. Use it for your own interest. Yeah. Don't think your teachers are bothering, that they are taking away your weekend time, but use it to think, use it to reflect. Yeah, use it to be precise in your formulation. Yeah, because as we were talking about accountability, if we have to do something, we need to know why we have to do and what we can do and how we can act strategic. So good luck with your assignments. Wish you all the best and enjoy the weekend also in the very best way possible.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lois. Very good and very nice suggestion for the last closing statement. Okay, once again, I would like to say thank you, Dr. Luis, for being here, and for all of the students. Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. It will open your mind, open your thinking about the agriculture sector, social problem, transdisciplinary view, your next future, for your future. Okay, it's 5. I will close this meeting. Thank you very much, and hope that you are in a good health condition, all of you in this meeting. Okay, thank you very much for the meeting. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum. Bye-bye.
Bye.